Hello.
Okay, so Koach HaMedameh, this is the power of imagery, which he spoke about actually in the Yud Zayin, Koach HaMedameh, so Koach HaMedameh. So now in Yud Tes, he continues. Koach HaMedameh zeh uchrachlios nidchem nilkek tzas. Uh,
Check under the beds.
Danny boy.
it's a pretty amazing statement. This power of imagery was compelled to be pushed aside and damaged even slightly, and the Shifas Ruach HaDas Elyon Shulchan Kodesh, by the flow of the spirit of higher das of Ruach Kodesh and Yisrael, the lofty Ruach Kodesh and B'kol Yisrael. Shuchrach lavo lakim lavo la'olam. It's like not possible. It would have to come down to the world. Shelo yichal olam miskayim but elf dor below or Torah. The world cannot be sustained for 1,000 generations without the land of Torah. Shield circle, which is the finance of the world should exist for 1,000 generations, can't exist without Torah. Shield circle das, which is the stockpile of all wisdom. Um, so wisdom and imagery contradict each other. That's what he's saying. Intellect curtails imagery. Intellect curtails imagination. Imagination is best unrestrained by intellect. Yet the Torah is given this intellectual body, which then is going to restrain your imagination, right? Basically, to use the muscle which we perennially use, you can't make a chassid out of a litvak, right? There's the Torah is litvish and imagery is chassidish, and the litvish quality of Torah impedes the chassidish quality of imagery and imagination. The fundamental basis remains in Amisabakota, and that inner essence, the limited amount, but powerful, I guess, concentrated amount. Is in truth the foundation of all beauty. In other words, obviously it's Chanukah in Greek culture. The beauty is everything. The aesthetic is everything, right? And but the aesthetic, even though Judaism pushed it to the side to a large extent, it remained. How could you hear me till now? Get that microphone in place.
I was going to say that it didn't sound like you usually did, but
All right, let's
I was able to hear you fine though. It was a little echoey.
All right. So um so he says that this inner essence is the basis of all beauty. And it gets revealed through the vision of the Nevuah. The light of holiness is enveloped in the Nevuah. It finds a form in the Nevuah. It takes form in the Nevuah. A Levuah in Kabbalah means when something takes a form or shape. Of course, all the Nevuah is based on imagery, and Barry Kaplan uses this term, the dream center, to describe where Nevuah takes place in the mind. And the dream center is where the imagery takes place. So it's that inner screen of Nevuah is the plain place where the mind images things. So obviously, the Nevuah is rooted in the same power of imagery, which is the sense of the aesthetic and the sense of beauty and the sense of harmony in the world. This is amazing statement. He says in the Nevuah there's also this constriction of a lens which is not completely clear, not completely polished. And and evidently the reason why the lens is not polished, according to him, is because the Torah, the wisdom, blurs the imagery. It interferes with imagery. It's like static, even though it's a static which is not nonsense or gibberish. It's meaningful, but it impedes the reception. And Neza Krovim was only close sat mina aras and Navura Chokas Emir Torah. So on the other hand, the nations of the world, because they have the power of imagery to a greater extent, so you can have spirituality, which is an illumination of the Vua, even in the nations of the world. Because imagery ultimately comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Elohim. So therefore, even if you're a pagan, even if you're an idolater, you can still have a power of imagery, which can be vivid and profound. But of course, they're distant from Torah wisdom. Torah wisdom has to be imparted as a divine gift, and they didn't receive that gift. Imagery is intrinsic, he's saying, to every human being. Any human being can imagine things. And therefore, the power of imagery can have a very powerful impact even on a non Jew. But wisdom, Torah wisdom, not logic, but Torah wisdom is something which has to be imparted, and they don't receive that. Since they don't receive that, so they don't have that capacity. Of course, they can be smart. And I don't know, it's a good question. If you're a philosopher, I would say also your wisdom also curtails your power of imagery. And that's why there's a even in ancient Greece, there was a difference between the philosopher and the oracle, right? The oracle was the one who would use the power of imagery to give the vision, however accurate or non-accurate it was. And the philosopher was the litvak, he was not the one who was going to have this imagery. So I'm not sure the dichotomy that Rav Kook is making is a sharp dichotomy between Jews and non-Jews. It's a dichotomy between the capacity which a non-Jew possesses and the capacity a Jew possesses because a Jew is limited by wisdom, but also non-Jews limited by wisdom. Aristotle is not going to be a prophet. I think that
So
that's
Chacham Adif Minabi.
right. I mean Navi because he has the Navi is limited by his power of imagery, whereas a Chacham can be Mavin Dover Dover. He has the capacity to expand his knowledge and use it even when the inspiration is not hitting him. Um, uh, Rabbi Yisod B'Susar Gashmi Shaloma, but for the to found the basis of Gashmis of the nation. Haiskashus Artisim Eretz Yisrael. Okay, we've shifted gears here very dramatically. The material land-based connection with Eretz Yisrael. Yisrachus umal atzmusa and Israel. Sorry, do you have Yisrachus or Yisratkus?
His Raskus.
Yisratkus, which means to bond to the nation to its essence. The tzimtzum kol choshev and the focusing of its strength that it should not scatter. Kozman shein olam roy laged hakol b'seichel elyon. As long as the world is not capable of uniting everything with lofty intellect, which of course human beings now don't seem to be capable of doing in this lifetime. Uh, the wisdom down below has to fulfill its place. And this lower wisdom is not Torah wisdom necessarily. It's full of imagery. It gives a lot of um, manifestation. And it fortifies the midas hadin in the world by connecting to temporal acquisitions in the life of every individual, and the profound interest of the society to the life of the material acquisition, and the government control authority mitzat atzmam. Wow, it sounds like a very big plug for nationalism. I don't like it. But it sounds like a plug for nationalism because nationalism unites the nation with its land, unites the nation with itself, and it has to do with imagery. And the whole concept of a flag is this idea is based on imagination, based on imagery that this piece of cloth represents something, and the idea of rallying to the flag is based on imagery, and the whole idea of a nationality is an imagined concept to a large extent. It's it's based on uh, um, projections of concepts which don't necessarily really exist and are probably not true. The if I can get political here for a minute, One of the things which bothers me about Trumpism and other modern manifestations is of that jingoism is the idea that there are intrinsic differences between human beings, and that the person who comes from Guatemala is or Honduras is somehow intrinsically different than the person who comes from um, Texas or from New Jersey. And there can be differences in culture, obviously, and differences in upbringing and so on and so forth, and obviously in many different forms of the civilization. But the whole difference intrinsically is largely based on imagination and imagining there's a difference.
I once heard a quote, I think it was H.L. Mencken. He said, fascism comes with a cross wrapped in a flag.
Okay, so
So there's an image, two
yes,
images, two
right.
images,
So, but
which
he's saying it's a
probably, if they were kept apart, probably, you could say what you want about a cross, but a flag can be certainly benign.
right.
Whereas when you combine them,
It
you have
becomes
a
lethal. Yeah.
toxic mix.
Okay, so he says so. כשלא הגיע עדיין הזמן של כל טוהר להופיע אל המרמים הגמתיים, when with the times I come for everything pure to manifest to the designated lofty heights. ישכו מאש יהושע, שניים אנשים רגלים חירש. They were sent by Yeshua two spies, kind of left field, silent spies, להרגיל הזרץ to slip out the land. ובאו לבייס אישה זוינה, they came to the house of a prostitute, לשמור אחריו. והכל נקשר בקודש ובטוב עליון. The everything is I really don't I don't get it. I'm not sure what the muscle there is, but let's see. Maybe it's going to develop it. Everything is connected to holiness and to good on high. Aminas Mitzaras, but the attribute of justice is aroused because Onashamitis and simple fear of punishment is required. It's based on the value or the extent of the control of the power of imagery, and its depths. In the essence of the national desire and national destiny, lo nishlam ozadaina partzufa dimyoni. The countenance of imagery has not been completed. Achiz das, to seize onto the wisdom, become muso in its manifestation. Mitzad echad, on one hand, vayovi chotura mitzad sheni, the and the beauty with all its descriptions on the other hand. V'zeu shlam b'mei Shlomo is completed days of Shlomo. Ostamon shtayim nashim zanos v'nei mishpat melech Yisrael Yoshev kisei Hashem. So I don't know.
Wow.
I don't
He's
know
drawing a he's
what.
drawing a connection between that Shlomo's incident and the Meraglim, the two
Yes,
Meraglim.
yes. So he's saying that somehow the 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 control of judgment over the of I really have no idea what he's actually saying.
Yeah.
Um, when somehow the relationship between the Meraglim and the Zona was not a fulfilled relationship. Whereas the relationship of Shlomo to the Zonos was a fulfilled relationship. Um, I don't see the. I guess somehow,
He explains a little more. It looks like.
yeah. Okay. Not my idea. He's arbishon nashim nachrios with the mixture of foreign women im chushas hakoach lakel dvarim zarim, with the lack of with our lack of strength to digest foreign things. Yatsa risha that came out evil. Shagarmli yisod krak odosh Romi, which caused the foundation of the great city of Rome, which is Chazal say was founded when Shlomo married the daughter Paro.
Right.
Is Sunenia Isodos, who's the Chularich Adam and the clarification, the sifting, the straining of the foundations. They had to it took epics עד שיסגר הכוח המדמה משליטה רחבה בגבול ישראל. Somehow, Rochav Hazoina represents, in some metaphorical sense, the Israchus, the expansion of Znus. And the Znus is the Koach HaMadama in a negative way, which evidently was somehow necessary at the time of the coming into Eretz Yisrael. But it wasn't under control. I guess they needed to be very nationalistic at the time. Later on, this power, which is Mizana, in other words, this imagery, was under control by Shlomo HaMelech. That's symbolized by the two zonos being coming to judgment before Shlomo. But then it messed up because the power of the assimilatory trends of Shlomo HaMelech um, led to the power of imagery being again ascendant, with all of its focus on the aesthetic and the beautiful in a material way. And that led to the ongoing struggle with Rome, with wickedness, until actually Garish Kocha Medame, Mishlita Rechova, Bigul Yisrael, Visa Davazon Netzar, Beduda Ba'adabra. And until at the time by Shani, the power of imagery was arrested from its broad control among the Jews when the Yetzer Avodah was stopped up in a lead box by the Anshe Knesset Gdoila, V'nachis Yitzon Yisrael the Yetzer Hara. So the Koyach Madame, again, it's very strange, his Misholim, but his Mashal is the Rochav Azayna is the power of imagery slash nationalism slash the aesthetic being very powerful. And I guess that's why there's a lot of Avodah Zarah at the time by Rishon, because of all this uh, drive for the imagery of pageantry of Avodah Zarah. And then there's this curtailment of it at the time of Shlomo, but not completely, because of the obviously the influence of foreign foreign influences. And but then again, at the time of Bayesheni, it's restrained, but it's restrained in a way which kills it, as opposed to uses it. It has to be suppressed. It can't be sublimated. Umasa, and therefore, as a result, Ein Od Navi Itanu. There's no more Navim because Koch Medama has just been stopped up. Ulavas Avas Umavaretz Enomru Geshes, and the holy nationalism, which Rav Kook says is linked to the power of imagery of the love of nation and land. It's not felt in the same way it was at the time when things were good. And this is linked to the anguish of the entire world. Until the end of days, the footsteps of the power of imagery will be revealed in a positive way. And again, it's linked to nationalism. The arousal, the Avos Orot, according to Rav Kook, even the secular love of Eretz Yisrael is a prophetic experience. Okay? It's seen in the dregs. It's not manifest in a high and holy way, which we would like. But it's going to be refined. The small one would be for 1,000, and the long one to a mighty nation. I'm Hashem at the right time. I'm going to make it flow in a hasty way. So we've seen that Rav Kook links nationalism and nationalist tendencies to Koach HaMadameh, and he thinks it's a good thing on the whole, but it has to be controlled and restrained by Torah, and therefore we don't have it to the same extent as nations of the world do, because it's a shame by Torah. And the times where it was overflowed in a way which is negative, such as the time of the Beis HaMikdash, and even though Shlomo brought it under control, but then the foreign influence changed it, ruined that, undermined that, and it had to be brought under ultimate control, even the price of nevuah by the Anshe Knesset Gdoila.
So does he say that the nevuah has sort of like the same root as the avodah zarah?
Yes, absolutely.
Really.
Yes, that's
well. I mean, there was. I once heard.
That's Machshava 101. Avodah Zarah is imagery, and pageantry, and nevuah is imagery without the pageantry, but with also the aesthetic in it, because it's a glorious thing to behold.
I once heard Reb Yisroel Reisman say in one of his shiurim that people wonder why, or there's a lot of speculation about how Greece started. How did it all come about? Like all of a sudden, people started thinking. I mean, there's a lot of theories, the rise of cities or the urbanization or the migration, whatever. He said that once Chazal davened to get rid of Avodah Zarah and Nevuah was taken away because that was the counteracting to Avodah Zarah, so there was nothing to think about. And so in order to fill the vacuum, the intellectual or spiritual type of vacuum, so Greece came about.
That's
The
cute.
you know the
I think that if I remember from Hutner, that the Yetzer Hara Avodah Zarah was supplanted by the Yetzer Hara Apikorsis. That's what he
uh,
says Greece is. It's
uh,
Greece is the Yetzer Hara Apikorsis. Not that they never say Apikorsim. Skepticism.
right, yes, yeah.
Right.
No, I think that's
Yeah.
I've always found that to be a very very powerful idea and a powerful theory about intellectualism in
Right.
general and that whole movement that secularism is just was just something there was nothing else to think about or to follow, so we had to, so there was this flowering of ideas.
Right. Okay. That was an interesting piece.
Very good, yes, very
Okay.
interesting, especially for Hanukkah.
Chanukah, that's right.
Yeah,
All right. We should use the Koach Madam in the right way.
yes sir.
Take
Okay,
care.
yes, thank you very much, have a good night.
Good night.